Good evening, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm going to be reviewing to you Super Mario Party Jamboree for the Nintendo Switch. If there is one series that just refuses to have DLC, it's Mario Party. We had 3 Mario Party games on the Nintendo 64 within like 3 years of each other too, 4 on the GameCube, 2 on the Wii, 3 on the 3DS, and now 3 on the Switch. When everyone else was like, hurry up and get DLC Mario Party Superstars, Nintendo was like, nah, we're gonna do the Tears of the Kingdom route and just make an entirely new game. And boy am I glad they did, because I feel like the selling point of it being the biggest Mario Party to date is not only true, but it actually helps the game to have a better sense of progression and cohesion than the previous game did, which is saying a lot, because I love Superstars, but Superstars feels more like a proving grounds for this than anything else. So first off, what is the main premise of Jamboree besides the fact that it's big? Interconnectedness is also a big part of the experience. You play on a series of islands, which you can actually view from a hot air balloon, and select from them while you're looking at them instead of just the usual menu. You can even take pictures of various creatures doing fun stuff in the background to get additional party points. When you're done with the various modes that the game has to offer you, you can go back to the party plaza and you can buy more music, more cards and stickers that you can show off to people. You can view statistics of players worldwide, and you can also select the single player mode. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. First off, we need to define what are party points. They're essentially your in-game currency. I don't know why they didn't use coins. I guess they wanted to shake it up a little bit, but you earn party points by doing various milestones, such as coming in first place in a board, doing good in a minigame, taking a picture. But there is also an achievement system. However, unlike most Switch games where achievements are just thrown in there because the other systems have them, achievements are actually essential to the progression of this game. You only start out with like 4 boards and only a handful of modes, and even some options are locked behind these achievements. Most of these achievements are pretty easy to get, but some of them can be pretty devious. There's a wonderful sense of continuing to advance the game, as the islands themselves will start to take more shape as you progress. Like at first you'll see a lot of the boards in construction, but then once you unlock them you'll see 3D models of them in the distance, and it's cool to have something to work towards rather than pretty much everything being given to you right at the start like Superstars did. I like Superstars' approach, but I think I like the idea of getting more and more over time. It works really well for the theme of this game and trying to connect everything together by the system of party points. Now, since this is the biggest Mario Party game yet, it also has the biggest selection of modes ever, or so I've heard. I haven't played all the games in the series. So let's go over the stinkers first so that we can move on to the main mode of the game. Since this is a Switch game, obviously they wanted to take advantage of the motion controls, especially because they had none of that in Superstars, but Super Mario Party required you to use a single Joy-Con. Thankfully, in Jamboree, a lot of the motion-controlled content can be turned off, but there are dedicated modes that require detached Joy-Cons in order to play. Paratroopa Flight School involves you spreading your arms out and flapping your wings like an idiot to make Mario fly. For some reason, you can only play as Mario. This mode was awful. I could not get it to work properly, and I felt really tired because I had to hold my arms out really wide. Maybe I'm just getting old, but like holding myself in that position for that long of amount of time was just very fatiguing, so I moved on. Another motion-controlled mode is Toad's Item Factory, where you control different blocks with different Joy-Cons by moving them up and down. So like the pink blocks you'd move with one Joy-Con, the blue with another, and you'd be tasked with getting a marble from one warp pipe to the next. This was alright, although I think my partial dyslexia was somewhat to blame for sometimes having a hard time coordinating the blocks between each other, as well as sometimes I wouldn't know how hard to tilt the Joy-Cons, and they would be kind of finicky. And then we have Rhythm Kitchen, which, I mean, the name kind of gives it away. you do various cooking motions to the beat of the music. There was a cooking mini game that was shown in the trailer that I didn't see in the game, but then again, I only have limited time to play on my TV, so I'm grateful that during the mode that I did test out, the motion controls worked flawlessly most of the time, except when they asked me to pump my fist to the beat. Sometimes it would just register that I was pumping way too fast, but whenever they would have me do stuff to the rhythm, it worked effortlessly. In fact, in one of the mini games, I even got a perfect score, so Nintendo did something right with the Joy-Cons. However, these are the epitome of play it and move on types of modes. Thankfully, from here on out, everything gets significantly better and much more fun. So let's move on to the positives. Minigame Bay just lets you play through the minigames. And when I say play through the minigames, I mean that all of them, yes, all of them, are unlocked from the start. You do not have to actually play them within a mode in order to experience them here. I believe Mario Party Top 100 did that as well, but that game was far less of a traditional Mario Party, whereas this one feels like one of the classic games, which those games did involve you unlocking the minigames over time. And while some players may feel like there's so much progression everywhere else, but you get the minigames all at once, personally, I feel like since minigames are usually everyone's favorite part of Mario Party, I think it's a good choice. There are many different ways in which to play the minigames, such as just picking one from a list and playing it, a gauntlet of minigames, a daily challenge, and these modes will get you more party points and more achievements, so might as well give it a try. It's also cool that you go to like your own dedicated island and walk around to select the options to further add to that sense of interconnectedness. I am very grateful that players are just given the option to just play the best part of Mario Party without necessarily needing to go through any of the other steps if they so desire. The Cathlon was advertised as an online mode where up to 20 players would play at the same time. However, I feel like that was slightly misleading, as I found out that you can play with computer players just fine. Yes, you do still play with 20 players at a time, but you're not directly competing with them. You're on a racetrack, and as you collect coins in single-player minigames, you will move more spaces around the racetrack. And once you complete the set amount of laps, the default is 3, but you can have more, then you win. And how this works is that you will play minigames by yourself, an actual good use of bringing back the one-player minigames in Mario Party 1, but you'll be facing them at the same time as everyone else. So even if you don't directly see what they're doing, you're still competing against them. If you collect enough coins, you can sometimes get items that you can use to distract your opponents. There's also different levels that each minigame can have, so that they'll have progressively tougher elements, but the payoff will also be that you'll get more coins by actually doing well in the games. A lot of them are really simple, but they require just enough skill to manage to make them work. Another cool thing about this mode is that you can actually select which 3 minigames are always going to appear, except for the Bowser Showdown ones, which are random, but you do have the option to practice all of the minigames before you actually play them. I do feel like it's a bit disconnected from everyone else, but at the same time, it is nice to be able to see minigames that allow you to just be on your own without having to worry about trying to get in everyone else's way. Bowser Kaboom Squad involves you working together with 7 other people. Again, you can play with computer opponents, not just online people, where you try to take down Imposter Bowser. Imposter Bowser is a running theme throughout this game, and the reason why I have to specify that it's an imposter is because Nintendo could have been creative and used something like Fury Bowser, or Giga Bowser, or Dark Bowser, or Dry Bowser. Plenty of Bowser variants throughout the years have been introduced. But instead, they figured, well, we're gonna make Bowser a playable character. But how are we gonna have Bowser be an antagonist like he's been in the past? I know! Make Bowser big and have him glow blue so that they can both be in it at the same time. Despite all that, you still can't play as Bowser in this mode. The main gist of it is that you choose between 3 different boards in which you can fully move around the camera to look around, and you'll have to break crates that contain bombs in them. You can carry up to 2 bombs at a time, and then you'll have to carry them to a cannon, and once enough bombs have been loaded into the cannon, you'll shoot them at Imposter Bowser until you eventually take down his health. After a certain amount of time has passed, you will go play a mini-game, and these are cooperative mini-games where you have to work together to try to get the best rank. The ranks go between C to S, and the higher rank you get, the better items that you have, and these items can be used to either help out the other players or hinder Imposter Bowser or the enemies on the map. So for example, you could get a hammer to make it easier to break open the crates, or you could get a dash panel that allows everyone to run faster for a couple of seconds. And it's up to you to pick which item you want out of the available roster, so there's a certain amount of strategy to not only picking which one is the most effective, as well as comparing and contrasting what other players have picked, but also making sure that you use it within that particular round, because you only have 5 rounds to take down Imposter Bowser, and each item only lasts for 1 round. I really like this mode. It's very chaotic, but never overwhelming. You have different commands that you can use to signal players over to your location. For example, if there's a crate that only you are trying to break open, you can press the B button, and then the word crate will appear above your head and players will come running to your side. Think of them like the commands that you could give in The Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes to compensate for the fact that Nintendo refuses to allow voice chat in these games. I really liked the idea of working together in the mini-games instead of competing. I liked the communication aspect, that even when playing with computer opponents, I did feel like I was playing in a fun multiplayer lobby, and I can only imagine this will be so much more fun when I actually get friends to play this in real life. For people like me who don't always have easy access to friends to play this game with, it is really nice that Nintendo and NDCube incorporated a story mode of sorts. The gist is that you can move around each of the new boards freely, sadly the returning ones are left out, and you talk to various characters across the board who have requests for you. Some of these requests are as easy as finding their lost item somewhere on the island, or a trading quest. Sometimes they'll have you play a mini-game, and depending on how well you do in either the mini-games or the requests, you'll get mini-stars. And once you collect 30 mini-stars, then you can move on to the next board. But before you do that, you have to fight a boss in order to get the mini-stars back. And these bosses are in the forms of mini-games where you and up to 3 other players will work together to knock out the boss's health. And the reason I say up to 3 players is that you can actually go into the boss battle unprepared. What you do is you take advantage of the new Jamboree system, which I will explain more in depth in the Mario Party Classic Rules section of this review. But basically, once you find a helper character on the board and complete their sets of minigames, then that player will be available as a helper in the boss battle. So say you get 4 Jamboree buddies, you can pick 3 of them to come into the battle. But if you only get 1, then it's only the 2 of you working against that boss. So it'll take slightly longer, but I never found these bosses to be unmanageable. I like the single player mode in concept. It's cool to be able to explore the boards however you want, almost like you're playing an adventure game. But on the other hand, it can sometimes be finicky to get the characters where you want to go. Sometimes it can be a little bit slow, as every time you win a minigame, you have to hear the same old jingle that goes on that you can't skip. Dialogue can be a little bit bland and a bit predictable, like every little thing that you do gives you mini stars. At least there's variety, but it still feels like there's just not a whole lot going on narratively. However, I still enjoyed doing that because the rewards that you get for this are, 1, you get a preview of some of the boards before you play them in the actual Mario Party mode, and 2, you get decorations that you can use to decorate the main plaza with. Not the most exciting of decorations, but you also get party points and achievements which can help towards unlocking other stuff. And there is a kind of a touching ending at the end. It's not mind-blowing by Mario standards, but it is nice that they attempted to have at least a little bit of an emotional moment near the end in an otherwise very bland and predictable story. Okay, I've saved the best for last. Now we're here to talk about the classic Mario Party board game experience. For the most part, it's pretty much the same as how it was in the classic N64 trilogy, as well as Mario Party Superstars. You roll a die to see how many spaces you move on the board, and depending on what color space you land on will determine what mini-games you play. If all players land in the same color. It's a 4-player minigame, 3 on one color, 1 on a different, 1 versus 3. You kind of get the gist of it. Your objective is to collect the most stars by the end of it, and the way that you get stars is by finding a star space and purchasing it with 20 coins. There are a variety of ways to get coins, from landing on blue spaces to doing well in mini-games that occur after each player has taken their turn. Each board has a variety of gimmicks to make it so that it's kind of unfair about who ends up winning the game, but also there's just enough skill involved to actually make meaningful decisions. There's usually junctions in the board where you'll have to decide which way to go. Or you'll have to decide, should I splurge at the shop early so that I can get some control over my dice rolls, or should I hold back because if I buy an item too early, I won't be able to afford the star. There's a lot of stuff that just feels like the computer players are cheating. Like they might land on a space that has a hidden block, and that person will just get a star out of the block. No effort whatsoever. Or chance time will happen, where a player's star counts will switch places with each other. And that is why Mario Party is often known as the friendship killer, because it just loves to make people be like, dude, you got through by sheer luck! Even though none of the boards are 100% luck. There is just enough strategy in there, and Jamboree does it the best out of any Mario Party game I've played to date, which is saying a lot because you know how much I love Mario Party 2. Speaking of Mario Party 2, they actually brought back 2 classic boards from the N64 games. Mario's Rainbow Castle is a linear jaunt up a staircase of clouds where you try to get to the top of the tower. Now the tower changes every time someone goes up to it. At first it starts out with a star, but then it'll switch over to being Imposter Bowser, who will steal your coins and not give you anything in return. And what's cool about the remake is once Imposter Bowser is on the tower, the scenery will turn dark and the music will be much more ominous. And even the shop will rotate, which I don't think there was a shop there in the original game, so that's pretty cool. Western Land is back, now in glorious HD, and I believe they even used real instruments for the song's remake. It just looks so much more lively. It looks like an actual real town as opposed to all the props and cardboard cutouts of the original. I like how they kept the mustache on the train. You can still have a hootenanny at the milk saloon, although they don't actually say hootenanny except in the achievements and presumably if you actually invite people over. That never happened when I played it. I appreciate the fact that they removed the Koopa Banks because that was by far the most annoying addition in Mario Party 2, and they kept it in Mario Party Superstars, but it's gone. Because it's not on any of the other boards, they figured, why keep it around here? I am a bit disappointed that they don't have the gunfight against Bowser at the end like they did in Mario Party 2. They also didn't keep in the cowboy and cowgirl outfits that the characters wore in that game. I kinda get it. They want to go for a more unified style, but then I say there's a new board in this game called Roll'em Raceway where everyone's driving in race cars. So if they could make one board have the players driving instead of walking around the board, why couldn't they have had one board where they brought back the costumes from Mario Party 2? In Mario's Rainbow Castle, that was the one board that actually has an ending cinematic where a big rainbow shows up above it, so why couldn't they have had this be the one board where you actually fight off against Bowser and have a story justification for being there? Still, I'm so happy to see Western Land back. It brings back all of the vibes that I loved about the original board so much, and it's so good to hear that wonderful music, especially the homestretch variation of it, which sounds even better. Of course, I don't want to understate how much I love the new boards as well. I feel like they perfectly fit in with what the original N64 trilogy had to offer, and their gimmicks are really cool. I'm not going to go over all of them because that would make this video a bit too long, but let's just say that I appreciate the fact that they are willing to try some new things, like bringing back the cars without having everyone being in a car, for example. That's a pretty bold move. But they still feel like these could have been on the N64, with how faithful they are to the just enough luck and just enough strategy motto that makes the classic boards feel so good. Now, I alluded to Jamboree buddies in the single player section, so let's elaborate on that. At seemingly random intervals, a character that is not among the active 4 playing the board will show up on the board, and you'll have to get to that character before the character leaves to initiate a showdown minigame. Now, the person who spoke to the Jamboree buddy first will get 5 coins as well as an advantage in the minigame. But whoever wins the minigame, regardless of who passed by the ally, will get the ally. So you could have, say, Yoshi pass by the ally, but if Pauline wins the minigame, then Pauline steals the ally. Now, the way this system works is that the Jamboree buddy will tag along with you as long as no one passes you. You get a special skill depending on the buddy. So, for example, if you have Wario, you automatically get coins from him at the start of your turn. If you have Yoshi, he can steal... Well, he doesn't steal the items, but he copies an item that an opponent has that you pass, and so on. But the general skill that every Jamboree buddy has is that every action you take at the end of your turn can take place twice. So, for example, if you go to buy a star, you can buy 2 stars instead of just 1 for double the price. If you land on a blue space, you get double the amount of coins. This also applies for negative effects, too. So if you land on a Bowser space, you have to roll the roulette twice to get twice the punishment. If you land on a red space that takes away your coins, you lose twice as many coins. So there's a bit of a risk-reward factor involved, and there's also a bit of strategy with trying to see if you can pass the player who has the Jamboree buddy so that you can steal him or her for yourself. Now let's talk a little bit about the mini-games, which in my opinion pretty much all of them are great. I can only think of a handful of games where I dreaded having to play. I especially appreciate the fact that you have the option to turn off all the ones that use motion controls, because goodness knows I am so sick of that fad. The Wii had some cool concepts, but I personally think it's time to move on to more traditional button and stick controls, assuming the next system doesn't make me change my mind. I appreciate the fact that they brought back some returning minigames, but didn't over-rely on that like they did in Superstars. All of the new ones feel like they fit right in with some of the best, but the returning ones still feel just as good as I remember them being, with the music spruced up, the graphics so much better, and some of them even have some quality of life improvements, like Platform Panic, for example, which was one of my favorites in Mario Party 2, now has much wider platforms that don't feel as punishing to miss the jumps, and it feels like it's actually easier to nab the coins without getting in everyone's way. I can't think of a single Mario Party game that has had bad mini-games, with the exception of maybe Mario Party 1, with those stick-rotating ones. But generally speaking, they've all been consistently good, even if the games themselves haven't, and Jamboree is no exception to that rule. But what I really love about these mini-games are the diversity of them. Sure, you get the typical 4-player 1 versus 3 ones that you've always had, but then you get some more unique ones, or ones that only appeared in one entry that didn't return, such as the boss mini-games from Mario Party 10. There are Imposter Bowser minigames where you fight against him that you do in Bowser Kaboom Squad. There's Showdown minigames which are specific to each ally. I forgot to mention that in the Jamboree Buddy section because you know I love unscripted reviews. But each Jamboree Buddy has a minigame that's specific to that character. So if you're trying to get Mario as an ally, then you'll play through 3 minigames from past Mario parties in a row, and whoever does the most in those 3 consecutive minigames gets him as the ally. Or if you have Wario, then he'll do a set of microgames, just like he does in the WarioWare series. And it's a great way to show off these characters' personality without actually needing a whole lot of dialogue. I appreciate that there's cooperative versus competitive minigames. The single-player minigames are back. Pretty much all of them are great, and I can only imagine how much better they'll get after I get some friends to play this game with. Finally, I'd like to bring up some miscellaneous details that help the game all add up to be one whole cohesive package. The graphics are phenomenal. Of course, the previous 2 Switch entries already looked stunning, and this game just continues the trend. The new boards all look absolutely fantastic. The old boards look so much better in HD. Some of these haven't seen an appearance in like 20 years, and they look so much better and sound much better. There's a lot of quality of life improvements to help everything go along, such as when you're checking the map, you can actually view which space you'll land on after you're finished with the dice roll, so it's easier to plan out which route to take if you come to a junction point. The minigames are all pretty fun, and there's a great mixture of old and new to make it feel like it's a good evolution of Mario Party while still feeling like a faithful homage to the games that worked. I hope that future Mario Party games will just continue iterating on the formula established here. Now, this is priced at $60, but I kind of feel like it's justified in this case. There's a lot to do in this game, and the stuff that is brand new looks so spruced up and modernized. I guess my biggest nitpick with the game is that the sound mixing is kind of awful. Like, I don't really like the fact that you can't turn off the sound effects, so when I'm trying to hear Western Land's glorious new remix, the sounds of the characters and the musical accompaniments that play whenever someone starts their turn gets in the way of the arrangement. There is an in-game soundtrack player though, so that's pretty cool. And I also don't like whenever there's motion controls, but thankfully you can mostly ignore those and still get most of the achievements. Otherwise, pretty much everything else is an absolute blast. And I highly recommend picking this game up. I think it's way too big to just be a rental. Unless if you're not a Mario Party fan at all, I highly recommend picking this up. It comes with a 3-month Switch Online plan, assuming this video doesn't get outdated. However, I will warn you that there's a bit of false advertising with that. It does not apply to people that have the expansion pack. So if you're like me and you wanted those N64 games, too bad, you don't get the 3 months. But I still think it's a worthy purchase because it's such a big and high quality game, and I imagine it's so much more fun with friends that I think it'll be well worth your money. So with that, thank you very much for watching, my friends. Let me know down in the comments if you'll be picking this up and what your favorite board in Mario Party history is besides Western Land. And until the next time, remember to keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye!
Congratulations!